The tension between the United States and Israel has rarely been higher than it is now. President Obama is pressuring Israel to stop building new homes in East Jerusalem.
Its own neighborhoods. But Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says that those buildings are going to continue. So some fear that this crisis could bring down Netanyahu's government. Our Chris Mitchell brings us a report from Jerusalem.
Netanyahu met today with his inner security cabinet to discuss the demands made by the Obama administration. The key issue is Jerusalem. Some reports say the Obama administration is making the following demands: an immediate halt to all Israeli construction in Jerusalem, a continuation of the 10-month moratorium on Jewish construction in the West Bank, also known as the biblical heartland of Judea and Samaria. That moratorium is due to end in September. One Israeli official said there was no shift in U.S. policy regarding Jerusalem, but former Israeli ambassador to the United Nations, Dori Gold, told CBN News he disagrees. He says the Obama administration is making demands never made before.
By insisting that Israel cannot build for its Jewish communities in the eastern parts of Jerusalem, in Jewish neighborhoods for Jerusalem, this does seem to be a sharp break from past U.S. policy.
Obama's demands threaten Netanyahu's coalition. If he meets those demands, his coalition could fall. Some suspect that's been the strategy of the Obama administration since the crisis began just over 2 weeks ago. Jewish groups are calling the U.S. demands unprecedented in scope and intensity. The Obama administration's treatment of Netanyahu this week provoked one commentator to observe that Netanyahu is being treated as if he were an unsavory third-world dictator. But in an open letter to the Prime Minister published in the Israeli press on Friday, more than half the Knesset members from across the political spectrum backed the right of the State of Israel to strengthen our hold on the Jewish neighborhoods in all parts of the city. The Obama strategy may backfire if the Netanyahu government falls and elections are held. The new government may well be more right-wing than the current government. An overwhelming majority of Israelis favor Jewish construction in Jerusalem, and polls indicate the next government would be even more conservative. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, it's a time to pray for Israel and pray specifically for the peace of Jerusalem. And I'm not sure the administration knows what it's done in order to embolden the enemies of Israel. The assumption of prior administrations is the problem with the peace process has been the Palestinian Authority, which has never given up its claim to drive Israel into the sea. And if you start putting pressure on Israel about building new homes in East Jerusalem, which has never been an issue, that's a brand new one, that if you can't build homes in the Jewish section of Jerusalem, well, then where can you? And all it does is embolden. And it emboldens Hamas, and it emboldens Iran, and it emboldens the Arab world that, if we put up more pressure on, we literally can drive them into the sea. So now's the time to pray. Pray for our administration, pray for Israel, and pray for peace. Lee Webb has the rest of our top stories from the CBN Newsroom. Lee?
Gordon, Democrats are sending the final piece of the health care bill for President Obama to sign. The president has gone on the road to drum up support for the new law, and he's daring Republicans to make good on their pledge to try and get rid of it.
Now that we passed it, they're already promising to repeal it. They're actually going to run on a platform of repeal in November. You've been hearing that. And my attitude is, go for it.
Already, though, businesses are warning that the reform will be expensive. In the first 2 days after the law was signed, 3 major companies, John Deere, Caterpillar, and Valero Energy, said they expect to take a total hit of $265 million from changes in the tax laws under the new measure. Other businesses are expected to announce similar losses. The Pentagon is making it more difficult now to kick gays and lesbians out of the military. The new policy will require a general or an admiral to start proceedings against a service member in question. It will also require higher standards of proof, and those who come forward to out gay service members will have to testify under oath.
my signature right after this meeting, every case that is currently still open will be dealt with under these new regulations.
President Obama wants Congress to get rid of the policy altogether. A Pentagon review on how to do that will be released at the end of this year. There are new reports of Securities and Exchange Commission employees viewing pornography at work. ABC News reports that over the past 2 years, dozens of employees and contractors were accessing porn on government computers, some spending as much as an hour and a half on the sites. Some employees resigned, faced suspension, or received no disciplinary action at all. A Securities Commission spokesman, though, says surveillance and filtering systems are in place now for monitoring. Former President George W. Bush says it's the prayers of the American people that surprised him most while he was in office. Religion News Service quoted Bush as saying, "You gain strength as a leader by recognizing you need help." Mr. Bush told students at Southeastern University in Lakeland, Florida, that it was a humbling experience. He said the prayers of total strangers had a calming effect on his presidency and surprised him more than the international crisis of 9/11 and the Iraqi insurgency. For the first time in 130 years, members of Congress gathered in Statuary Hall at the U.S. Capitol for a church service. Jennifer Wishon has that story.
About 300 members from both sides of the aisle gathered to worship just hours before the House of Representatives voted to pass health care reform. Virginia Congressman Randy Forbes organized the service and delivered a message about trusting God.
When we look at our founding fathers, we don't have to ask the question, I wonder what would have happened if they had trusted God. They did. Our question is, what would have happened had they not trusted God? And the question we left them with was, 100 years from today, 30 years from today, what will our children be asking? Will they have to ask the question, I wonder what would have happened if they had trusted God? Or will they be able to ask the same question we get to ask, I wonder what would have happened had they not trusted God?
Church services in the Capitol were common throughout the 1800s. At one point, nearly 2,000 people assembled for church there each Sunday, representing the largest Protestant church in the U.S. Thomas Jefferson attended a church service at the Capitol just 2 days after writing his famous wall of separation between church and state metaphor in a letter. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News, Capitol Hill.
An amazing scene at the Capitol, Gordon, and those were compelling questions that Congressman Forbes was asking.
They are, but it's good to see us return back to our roots, and Statuary Hall is once again a place of public worship. Congratulations to Randy Forbes, a dear friend, congressman from right here in Chesapeake, Virginia.
A group of Alabama students is fighting legally to have their school resume prayer and Bible reading over its public address system. Calhoun School Superintendent Judy Stiefel had ordered the prayer and Bible reading canceled after one student complained. About a dozen Alexandria High School students, though, appealed that decision. The students will be allowed to give their opinions this week at a school board meeting, but the school superintendent won't back down because she says school prayer violates U.S. Supreme Court rulings. It's difficult for people in remote areas of Peru to get clean drinking water. People in this colony, for example, must walk 2 miles just to get to the nearest river. But that river is polluted, and the contaminated water has caused a great deal of sickness among the villagers. But Operation Blessing is helping this community of 1,500 people. It has installed a simple artesian well that can purify up to 10,000 gallons of water each day. And now a nearby village has a similar system. You can find out more about Operation Blessing by going to its website at ob.org.